My name is Lino Veljak, and I'm a professor at the University of Zagreb, head of the Department of Philosophy, and also active in civil society in Croatia and the region of former Yugoslavia. I'm president of a Forum for Freedom in Education, and it's one Croatian non-governmental organization. Also, I'm an active member in Protagora, in this civic society oriented to protection of civil and human rights of non-credents and atheists, and orientated against the secularization of Croatian state and society.
When was Protagora founded?
Before 2 years. And was founded because the situation in Croatia is changing in last 17 years. Also, the sense after introduction of political pluralism, Croatia became, in the period of the wars, especially in the period of the war in Croatia, a very authoritarian state with a ruling party, and it was right-wing orientated. And this party want to have support of Catholic Church as majority religion community in Croatia. You must know that Catholic Church in Croatia is conservative in comparison with Catholic Church in West European countries, maybe comparable with Catholic Church in Poland, but maybe with one very important differentiation, namely, the Catholic Church in Poland is very conservative, strong nationalistic. So, but Catholic Church in Poland has anti-fascistic tradition because its church was one of the ruling forces in anti-fascistic movement during the Second World War, the period of Nazi occupation of Poland. Catholic Church in Croatia hasn't this sign of anti-fascism. It is true that one part of the priests during the Second World War participated in anti-fascistic war, this movement, anti-fascistic movement, but major part of hierarchy and good part of priests collaborated with Quisling regime in independent Croatia during the Second World War, and so Catholic Church in Croatia have unclear position in the question of fascism and anti-fascism. This is one very important thing. A second very important thing is that Catholic Church used the situation during the war and during the authoritarian government of Franjo Tuđman to become some privileges. So if you ask me if Croatia is secular state or not secular state, my answer is the following. Croatia is, in the formal constitutional sense of the word, one absolutely secular state with clear differentiation between state and church. A religion is part of civil society and not part of state structures. That is according to Constitution, but according to Concordat from 1955, and a Concordat in the legal sense more important as a constitution, because international according have priority, legal priority on the of the constitution, up the constitution, and because of that, this Croatia is according to constitution secular state, but according to Concordat, a state in a process of desecularization, namely privileges of Catholic Church are so great and so important that Church became one very, very important factor in the politics and in regulation of society life. For example, it was introduced a religion doctrine in the primary and secondary schools. Second, Church became direct financial support from the state. Priests are servants, state servants, but without any obligation in a report to a parliament or government, absolutely independent, and they are they must be obedient only on our hierarchy. So they have all privileges of state servants and no obligation against community. Third, it was introduced dioceses in military and police forces, and this diocese is part of military and police structure, state structure, but without any responsibility against parliament, against supreme commando of the military. They are obedient only to Catholic Bishop Conference and to Vatican.
How are the dioceses part of military forces? I don't get it.
That's model that are used in Italy, in Federal Republic of Germany, and in some other countries, especially in Latin American countries, so-called military vicar. There are members of a Catholic hierarchy, bishop, military bishop. They are general in the formation, but he hasn't any responsibility in relationship with supreme commander, in relationship with civil control of military forces. That is Italian model that was introduced in 1929 through Concordat between Mussolini and Pope. in this formal sense, through the constitution, according to the constitution, secular state, but also formal on the other level, on the level of military hierarchy, and on the level of concordat and results of concordat, semi-secular state. That is not a unique case. I said that was introduced in 1929 by concordat between Mussolini and Pope Pio the 11th. But this model was used in 19th century in a relationship between Pope and German Empire, and also that was older. That was introduced in a relationship between Pope, Vatican, and Habsburg Empire, but with one very important differentiation, that Kaiser of Austria had right of veto on the election of Pope. And in this new situation, with Mussolini, and later with Federal Republic of Germany, and now with Croatia, Poland, so on, state haven't any possibility for influence to church policy of Vatican or for local state.
What are the political forces now working in Croatia against secularism?
So we can speak about political forces, democratic parties, but with very important reserve. Why? For example, Social Democratic Party in Croatia is most important oppositional party. A party that have clear principle, clear position in relationship with church and secular character of the state. In the practice, are making big compromises with church and want to have a church on their own side against political concurrency. And so we have a situation that a party which was from the part of the church demonized as atheistic party, now practically is a party that are making any objection against clericalization of the state and of the society, against, for example, clericalization, church control on the education, and so on. So political parties, important political parties, cannot be defined in a clear sense of the word as forces, social forces that are against these processes of desecularization of society. And so rest only forces of civil society. For example, our organization Protagora, but also Forum for Freedom of Education, and also network of feminist organizations. And one very important thing, thing is the following. Around 1996, the former ruling party of Franjo Tuđman, want, on the pressure of Vatican, of local Catholic hierarchy, to introduce abolition of right of abortion. The result was one very strong campaign. It was activity in first line of a feminist network in Croatia, and so abortion is legal. Investigation of public opinion demonstrated some very interesting things. For example, around 90% of population declared himself as Catholics, but only 60% of this Catholic population mind that exists a personal God, that exists God. Mm-hmm. Only 50% are believing that exists hell and heaven after the death, and only 40% believe that abortion is a crime, and only 20% of population are practically Christians, practically Catholics. 70% of these so-called Catholics are formal traditional believers, and that is, in any case, one good situation for these activities of anti-fundamentalist civil forces in Croatia. But on the other side, ruling policy, ruling parties, governing parties, but also opposition are making so big compromises with the church, with this conservative oriented, right-wing oriented Catholic Church in Croatia, that control on the level of, especially of education and of media, is so strong that we can hope that younger generation of children, today's children, don't become clerical people, don't become people under the influence of this very conservative orientated church.
Yeah, you said they control the media?
Yes. For example, one woman, she's judge in Split. Before some days, declare she don't sit in one commission. They have a judge commission, commissioner of the court, and they have their sessions in one room, in one bureau, with Christ on the
cross.
Yeah. That's private preference of president of this court, and this is not prohibited by law. Not prohibited, not obligatory, but don't exist any legal act that so something as that to make a religion symbol in a public office is prohibited. But this woman decided that she don't want to sit in this room. And after that, practically all media made great articles about this woman, demonizing this woman. Only one or two independent newspapers give informations about their civil courage. Other demonized this woman. That is a sign, this proof, the sense that mainstream media are under control of Catholic Church.